Hello guys, good morning. Now we're going to start our session, today's class. Before to that, I will give a recall of what we have already studied. Okay, we have already completed study note 1 or from chapter 1. Under this, what we have studied, we are going to give a recall. Okay, so I will come to the first page. Okay, so we have already studied what is the difference between direct tax and indirect taxes, the difference between it and what is the constitutional amendment, how bill changes into act and article 246A, then 269A, and on which product central excise duty is leviable, state excise leviable, GST level, and alcohol for human consumption, state excise is there. Okay, then next we'll go what is GST, what do I mean by GST, then advantages of GST, then why we need GST in India. Then we also took an example on cascading effects. Okay. Then we came through the example. We have also checked this case law and this example. Then non-availment of ITC. Then how the CST earlier forms were there. Now there is no CST forms. Then how data is shared within the center and the state. Then how GST became an one nation, one tax. Okay. Then dual GST model means SGST, CGST, and IGST. Okay. Then UTGST. Then how the revenue is shared between the center and state. Also with an example, I've already understood this. And also Article 246(4), 246 subsection 4 also have studied. There are 5 Union territories in which legislature is not there. Okay. Then I've also studied the interstate supply versus interstate versus interstate stock transfer. Now, next to that, all this homework, I think you have already completed all these examples. Next, what we have studied yesterday, this all we have studied day before yesterday. Yesterday, we have studied what is GST. GST, I have already said it is a technology backbone for helping for capturing, processing, and exchange of information. We have taken this chart also for help of our understanding. We also studied the functions of GST. It is, sorry, sorry. Filing of registration application, filing of returns, challenge of tax payments, settlement of IGST payment, business intelligence, analytics, all these things we have already gone through it. Then what Article 279A GST Council, who are the members, who is the chairperson, who is the vice chairperson, okay, and guiding principle, what are the functions of GST Council, tax rate, exemptions, threshold limits, all these things I've already completed yesterday. And what do you mean by act and how many acts are there, what are rules, how many rules are there, notifications, circulars. And I've also gone through some of the definitions under the CGST Act: aggregate turnover, business, okay, business vertical, casual taxable person, composite supply, constitution, continuous supply of goods, continuous supply of services, electronic commerce operator, fixed establishment, goods, India, and input tax. Okay. Some of the important definition is aggregate turnover. So I'm repeating this definition. What do you mean by aggregate turnover? Aggregate turnover means all taxable supplies plus exempted supplies plus export plus interstate stock transfer. But it will not include value of inward supplies on which we are liable to pay on reverse charge basis. Okay. Then next is business. What do you mean by business? Business includes any trade, commerce, manufacture, profession, vocation, adventure, wager, or any similar activity, whether or not it is for a pecuniary benefit. Means there should not be any profit motive. Okay. And second bit is any transaction or activity in connection to the first clause. Okay. Examples I've already written here. Okay. Next is any activity or transaction, whether or there is a value, volume, or frequency, or continuity, or regularity of the such transactions. Fourth point: supply or acquisition of goods, including capital goods, when in connection to commencement or closure of any business. Then provision by club, association, or society, facilities and benefits given to its members. Next, admission for a consideration of persons to any premises like amusement park, cinema, etc. Then holder of an office which has been accepted by him in the course or furtherance of his trade, profession, vocation. For example, arbitration act. Under arbitration, arbiter is a person. Okay, so arbitration is held, the position of the arbitrator is held by an advocate. So this also comes under business. This is one of the most two definitions. Okay. Next, now we'll start today's topic. We'll begin with levy and collection of tax, supplies, scope of supply, what do you mean by composite supply, what do you mean by mixed supply. Okay. Before going to supply, we need to understand what is taxable event. Okay. What is taxable event? So taxable event under GST law is supply of goods or services or both. Okay. It means no supply, no GST. If there is supply, then GST. If no supply, there is no GST. So it means no supply, no GST. Okay. Next definition, supply. Supply has been inclusively defined in the Act. The meaning and scope of supply under GST can be understood in the terms of following 6 parameters, which can be adapted to characterize a transaction as supply. Okay. So what are those inclusions? Supply of goods or services, supply of anything other than goods or services doesn't attract GST. Okay. If you supply goods or services, then it will and GST will be attracted. Supply should be made for a consideration. There should be consideration, and it is should be in the course or furtherance of a business, means related to business or foregoing business. It should be made by a taxable person. Okay. It should be a taxable supply. It should be made within the taxable territory. If these 6 conditions are satisfied, okay, if these 6 conditions are satisfied, then we can consider it as a supply and GST need to be paid on this supply. This is called taxable event. Obviously, there will be some exceptions. So we'll go through the exceptions. What are the exceptions? Any transaction involving supply of goods or services without consideration is not a supply. So if there is a supply of goods or services, but for which there is no consideration, will not be considered as a supply, bearing few exceptions. But for this to also an exception is means exception to exception. Okay, exception to exception is in which a transaction is deemed to be a supply even without consideration. So there are some transactions in which we are not paying any consideration, but still then it will be considered as a supply. We'll go further deep into in the forthcoming notes. Okay. And one more thing is import of services for a consideration, whether or not in the course of business or not, is treated as a supply. Okay. So import of services for a consideration, whether or not in the course or furtherance of business, is also treated as supply. Okay. I have done wrong. Okay. It should be yellow color, no, because it is considered as supply. So consider it as supply. So import of services for consideration, whether or not in the course of business, is treated as supply. So it will be taken as supply. It will not be considered as a supply. Next. Now we'll start. This will be our first section, the supply, scope of supply. What do you mean by supply? We already described in the similar 6 points. Now we will see section 7. Supply includes and supply excludes. Okay. First we'll go through the inclusive definition. Then we will go to the excluding definitions. Okay. What do you mean by supply? As per section 1, supply includes all forms of supply of goods and services. All forms of supply of goods and services or both. Okay, all forms of supply means sale, transfer, okay. Sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, disposal, okay, disposal. So all these are forms of supply. Then we'll break into it. Made or agreed to be made for a consideration by a person. Okay, I'm breaking the definition into some parts. Okay, see. So in the all forms of supply in which will take the different forms. It may be sale, it may be transfer, it may be barter, it may be exchange, it may be license, it may be rental, it may be lease, it may be disposal, but it should be done for a consideration. Okay, it should be made for a consideration.
Yes.
So what will be our next point? Uh, by a person. Okay, here it is by a person. Then I'm dividing the whole definition so that it will be help to remembering. In the course or furtherance of a business. Okay. In the course or furtherance of business. So supply includes all forms of supply or good of goods and services. All forms of supply of goods and services are both as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, disposal, made or agreed to be made for a consideration by a person, okay, by a person in the course or furtherance of a business. We'll break these words and we'll go through the understanding in further notes. Next, we'll go to the second point. Okay, second point. Import of services. Okay, this is also, it will also include import of services for consideration whether or not in the course or furtherance of business. Okay, this one I've already seen here above, no? This point. Okay, this one. So next, all the activities specified in Schedule 1. So there are some schedules in which we'll go through some activities. Those activities are also included in the definition of supply. Okay, next. Schedule 2 also it will take, okay, activities. Supply of goods in relation to Schedule 2. So Schedule 1 and Schedule 2, both it will taken as supply. Okay. Then a newly section is added recently, that is 1A, 7 subsection 1A, capital A. What does it imply? It says that where certain activities or transactions constitute a supply in accordance with the provision of subsection 1, they shall be treated either as a supply of goods or services as referred to in Schedule 2. So this section 7 subsection 1 capital A will help us to understand whether the supply is of good or services. Okay, whether it is for goods or whether it is for services. Okay. So we'll go to the now exclusive definition. What supply excludes? This one I will highlight in red color. Okay. So activities or transactions specified in Schedule 3. So I have already said there are some schedules. So Schedule 1 and 2 will consider an inclusion and exclusion Schedule 3. Okay, Schedule 3. Means whatever the activities or transaction happen in Schedule 3, it will be not considered as supply. So no GST. Okay. Please mute yourself. Such activities or transactions undertaken by the central government, state government, or local authority in which they are engaged as public authorities have been notified by the government on recommendation of the council. So the activities or transactions undertaken by central government, state government, or local authority. Okay, local authority, as if they are engaged as public authorities. Okay, then these activities will be not considered as supply. As we have studied, these 2 points are more relevant for exclusion. Now we'll go under Schedule 3. Okay, in Schedule 3 considers some of the activities which are exclusion definition. Okay, so I'll highlight in red color. Okay, services by an employee to employer in the course or relation to his employment. So services provided by employee to employer. It is just like a negative list. Earlier in service tax there was negative list, but in GST there is no negative list. but we can, for understanding purpose, you can consider it as negative list. So Schedule 3 contains some of the activities or services. Okay. So services by employee to employer, because already there is a predetermined agreement or contract to the for the services provided by employer to employer. For so there will be no GST. Then services by a court or tribunal. Okay. Then services by MP, member of parliament and others, like MP, MLA, and member of panchayats, all those things, all those government officers. Then services when funeral is there, burial is there, including transportation also, it will be not considered as GST. Then sale of land. This is very important. This will go into deep on the next section. Sale of when sale of land or building is comes under supply, and when it will come not as in supply. Then actionable claims, but other than lottery, betting, and gambling, this will be considered as supply. Okay, you need to give more importance to this. Lottery, betting, and gambling, this will be supply. Okay. So lottery will come under supply, betting will come under supply, gambling will be come under supply, but actionable claim will not come. Okay. So next, supply of goods from a place in a non-taxable territory to another place in non-taxable territory without such goods entering into India. Suppose a business person or a supplier purchases some goods from China and it's selling to Australia. So China is non-taxable territory, Australia is also non-taxable territory. So, and the goods have also not entered India. So it will be considered that it is not in supply. Next, supply of warehouse goods to any person before clearance for home consumption. Okay. We have not studied custom, but still then I will tell you. Warehouse goods means when under Custom Act, when uh, any goods or goods has been imported, first either it is taken for home consumption or for warehousing. Suppose it has been taken for warehousing and afterwards it will be taken for home consumption. Before taking into home consumption, it is stored in warehouse goods. At that time, if its supply is transferred to any other person, then it will also be not considered as a supply. Next point, supply of goods by the consignee to any other person by endorsement of documents of title of the goods. Okay, so suppose any goods has been under import and it is in transit, and all, but it has all in transit means already left the country of import. Now it is going to reach our country, but before reaching to our country, the seller, the buyer of the import goods has transferred to any other party by endorsement of documents of title. Then also it will be not considered as supply. Okay, here one explanation is done. For the purpose of paragraph 2, the term court includes district court, high court, and supreme court. Okay. So district court, high court, and supreme court. For the purpose of this paragraph, the expression warehouse goods shall have the same meaning as assigned in Customs Act. Okay, we have a separate chapter warehousing, and this will go under the definition. So I will just revise this. Okay, so it will help you a lot. Section 7, as per subsection 1, supply include all forms of supply like sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, disposal, made or agreed to be made for consideration by a person in the course or furtherance of business. Next point, import of services. Third point, activities specified in Schedule 1. Fourth point, supply of goods or services related to the Schedule 2. And Section 7, subsection 1, capital A says that the certain activities or transaction which have already been considered as a supply under subsection 1 will be treated either as supply of goods or supply of services in Schedule 2. Okay. Now, 7 subsection 2 supply excludes some of the activities which have been specified in Schedule 3. And some of the activities or transactions undertaken by the central government or state government or local authority as they are engaged in public authorities. These two transactions will be not considered as supply. Now under Schedule 3, we'll consider as a negative list, and we have some of the list of some services. Okay, services by employer to employee to employer under contract, employment contract. So services by a court, a tribunal, a district court, high court, Okay. Then services by member of parliament, MLA, member of panchayats. Okay. Then services by a funeral, burial. Okay. Including transportation. Then sale of land and building, actionable claims, but not lottery betting gambling. This lottery betting gambling will come under supply. And some of the goods when supply of goods takes place from non-taxable territory to another taxable non-taxable territory without goods entering into India. Next point, supply of warehouse goods to any person before clearance for home consumption. The next point, supply of goods by consignee to any other person by endorsement of documents of the goods without after dispatch of the port of origin located outside India, but before clearance for human consumption. Okay. Now we'll go to 7 subsection 3. Okay. What is 7 subsection 3? It says 7 subsection 3 subject to the provision of subsection 1, 1A and 2, the government may on the recommendation of the council specify by notification. Government may specify by notification the transaction that are to be treated as supply of goods and not supply of services, and supply of services and supply of not goods. So 7 subsection 3 will help. It will come when government will notify some of the transaction as to consider that as a good, not a services, and to consider as a services, not goods. It will just help you like that. Okay. Okay. Alcohol liquor license grant thereof not to be treated as a supply of goods and services. This is the circular which came on first October 2019. This is very important. We'll go through it. So central government of India on the recommendation of the GST Council notifies that the following activities or transactions undertaken by the state government in which they are engaged as public authorities shall be treated as neither a supply of goods, neither supply of services. Okay. So when, as we have already seen here, okay, this one activities. Public, if there some governments are engaged as public authorities, it will not consider as a supply. So here the same thing it is written here. Supply, neither it is supply of goods nor supply of services. Okay, neither nor. Okay, namely, suppose government gives a grant for alcohol liquor license against the consideration in the form of license fee or application fees, or by whatever money fee it is called, then it will be not considered as a supply. Okay. Now we'll go into deep under the meaning of definition of supply. In the course of business, what do you mean by in the course? It means every person carries out certain activities regularly for running the trading company. Means from which you have the income source, main business. Okay. Certain activities regularly for running trade or commerce. Normal business, a shopkeeper sells all its goods. Okay, like that. See, example also. CMA RAM practicing cost accountant carries out the activity of accounting, auditing, filing returns, certifying documents, and so on forth. This activity can be considered as a performed in the course of business. Okay. Then what do you mean by furtherance of business? As we have studied in the definition of supply, that it will be written as in the course or furtherance of business. So what do you mean by furtherance of business? Every business person used to think how to develop his business or carrying out new activities, and such activities are called furtherance of business. Means we can say it can be an extension to the normal meaning of business. Okay, it's just a normal extension. One more example is that we can go through it. Next, I've already said all forms of supply. Now we'll go into what are the forms of supply: sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, disposal, made or agreed to be made for a consumption by a person in the course of furtherance of business. Now we'll go into deep by one meaning. What do you mean by sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, disposal. Okay. Sale, normal. What do you mean by sale? There's now nothing to be explained here. Sale means a sale of goods. Okay, sale of goods. Okay, sale of goods made within the state for cash or deferred payment or other valuable consideration, but does not include mortgage. Okay, does not include mortgage, hypothecation, charge or pledge. Then sale involves transfer of property in goods from one person to another person for consideration. Under GST law, sale is treated as a supply liable to GST. However, the definition of sale has not been provided under GST law. So GST definition, sales definition is not given in GST law, but it's given as just a meaning, definition under VAT law. Okay, this is important. It is defined under VAT law. We have taken from the state VAT laws. Okay. So mortgage, hypothecation, charge or pledge is not considered as a supply. Hence, GST will not be levied. Here are some examples are there. You can go through it. I'm not going into it because I have certain time limits. Now, next, what is transfer? Transfer means where the ownership may not be transferred, but right in the goods is transferred. Okay, let's go through an example for this. Goods sent for demonstration on returnable basis. Is it supply? Any? No, because there is no transfer of title involved. There is no transfer of title because on returnable basis demonstration is taken. We'll go to one for example. Mr. A is the owner of the Xerox machine. He will transfer the right to operate the Xerox machine to Mr. B for a consideration of 10,000 per month for 4 months. Hence, ownership of the machine is not transferred, but the right in the machine is transferred. Therefore, it is a supply of services liable to GST. Okay. Next, barter. What do you mean by barter? Barter means exchange. It's a type of exchange. It is the very old method. Exchange of goods and productive services for other goods and productive services without the use of money. Okay, I will give you a mobile, you give me a TV. Just like that. See, here an example is there. Mr. C, a practicing cost accountant, provided services to MSA Limited, dealer of laptops. In return, MSA Limited given to Mr. C 2 laptops. Here, two-way supply takes place. Mr. C is making taxable supply of services. And MSA Limited is making taxable supply of goods. Hence, tax is payable by both. Okay. Now, exchange. When two persons mutually transfer the ownership, see here the meaning, transfer the ownership of one thing for the ownership of another, neither thing nor both the thing by money only, then transaction is called exchange. Suppose exchange offers are there, television, mobile phone, refrigerators. When you go, you give a old product to the shopkeeper and you take a new product in exchange offer, so that services will come under supply and GST will be leviable. We'll go. I will take an example. Don't worry. Mr. A is a dealer of new phones. He supplied rupees 20,000 to Mr. B along with the exchange of old phone. And if the price of the new phone without exchange is 24,000, then the open market value of the new phone is 24,000. Mr. A is liable to pay GST on 24,000. So Mr. B also liable to pay GST on 4,000 if he's a registered person. So understood? Okay. So old phone value 20,000, new phone value 24,000. He gave the value of old phone 20,000 and he take the new phone of the 24,000. So rest amount is 4,000. The net effect will be given a GST on 4,000 because 20,000 actually 24,000 GST should be paid. But as I've already given the 20,000 phone, the rest amount is net consideration is 4,000 only. Will be giving 4,000 on GST. Then license, where one person grant to any other person, where any one person grant to another or to a definite number of other persons where one person grants to another or to a definite number of other persons a right to do. Okay. a right to do, continue to do, and upon the involved property of the grantor, it is called a license. Okay. Next, rental. Periodical payments for use of another property. It is called rent, is to pay on monthly basis. Periodical payment. Monthly will pay for a property we have taken on rent, we have to pay the rental. That is also a common rent supply. Lease. A lease is an agreement whereby the lessor conveys to the lessee in return for a payment or series of payment the right to use of an asset for an agreed period of time. See, lease means there will be two parties, lessor and lessee. Lessor will be the actual owner and lessee will be the he will use the property or immovable property. In return, he will pay some amount, is fixed amount or long-term amount or one-time lump sum amount or monthly recurring payments. That will be lease. The MS Bank given an asset on the financial lease to Mr. MS Unlimited and repayment of financial lease made by the customer to the bank of 80 lakhs, which includes the principal amount of 50 lakhs. So financial lease will be taxed on supply of services and MSM Bank is liable to pay GST. Then disposal. Disposal normally considering the selling of assets. This selling of assets when the organization is about to close down and various assets are required to be disposed of. Okay, when organization is closed down, then all its assets and inventory need to be sold out in a realizable value. That's we can say disposal. That also comes under GST. Okay. Now our definition, first point we have already studied, completed right now. Which point? This one. All forms of supply. Sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, disposal. Okay. Let's take a break. We'll continue after the break. Okay. So after the break, we're going to start again. Okay. So now we'll do consideration. What do you mean by consideration? Okay. Consideration. Section 231 of CGST Act 2017 defines a consideration. So consideration means in relation to supply of goods or services or both, it includes any payment made or agreed to be made. Okay. Any payment made or agreed to be made, or any monetary value to any act or forbearance. Okay, so when you paying something or you have already paid or you are going to be paid, then it is called consideration for what? In response, whether in money or otherwise, means in money or kind, in respect of, in response to, or for the inducement of the supply goods. Why? Why you are paying for supply of goods and services. Okay, for supply of goods and services are both. For supply of goods and services are both, whether by the recipient or by any other person. Okay, so this is a crucial point. Whether by recipient or any other person. Whether by recipient or by any other person. But shall not include any subsidy given by the central government or state government. Okay, so this is also important. But shall not include any subsidy. Shall not include any subsidy given by central government or a state government. Okay, but if the subsidy is given by local authority, then we'll consider it in this consideration. Okay. So next, now suppose you are giving any deposit or advance. So how will you treat the deposit amount or advance or security money? So deposit given in respect of the supply of goods and services or both shall not be considered as a payment made for supply unless the supplier applies as deposit or consideration. So what do it mean to say is, when you are receiving any deposit from by the supplier, that deposit amount will not be considered as a consideration unless the supplier itself applies the deposit as the consideration. Okay. Example. And donation or charity does not attract GST. This is also most important point. Okay. So donation or charity doesn't attract GST. Example. Earlier Travels Private Limited, a travel agent books a ticket for a customer, Mr. Z. Travel agent raises invoice on customer Mr. Z for transportation of passenger by air of rupees 10,000 and his commission 500. The entire amount of 10,500 is not his consideration. The amount of 500 retained by the air travel agent is to be considered as consideration. Okay, so you got an idea. Now we'll go to next portion. Consideration does not include. Consideration includes non-monetary consideration. As we have already said, no, sorry, it's red color. Consideration includes non-monetary consideration. Aggregate of payments received in money and monetary value for the act of performance will constitute consideration. Okay. A sports club agrees to hire services of cricket player Mr. C for consideration of 2 crores. Okay. In addition to this agreement provides that the player shall be provided with the car value 20 lakhs. So your consideration for hire services will be given 2 crores. Along with this, services for the service of the car will be given for value of is 20 lakhs. The entire value is 2.2 crores will be considered consideration. That only it is saying consideration includes non-monetary consideration. Okay, next. Below are some of the clarification and examples. We need to go through it. Now we'll get this is an important point. Okay, penalties levied on late or delayed payment of loans, advances are taxable supply. No. These are exempted supply under GST. Already we have discussed in our second class. Okay. These are exempted supplies. Okay. So see here explanation is there in the chart format. Here what it is, delayed payment charges like additional charge or penal interest. So value of supply excludes loan given by bank. As I have already said in the definition of supply, anything other than goods, but it excludes money and securities. So value of supply will exclude the loan given by the bank. So not taxable. The interest on loan exempted supply, but penal interest on delay in repayment of loan is also an exempted supply. Okay, this comes under circular number 102/2019 GST date 28/6/2019. Okay, if you have any doubt, you can go through this notification. Okay, then what will include the value of supply? When goods sold or supplied services on credit basis. If you are selling on credit basis, it will be under taxable supply. Okay, so credit basis, it will be taxable supply. Interest charged by supplier of goods or services on periodic payment. If you are paying on periodic basis for an interest, then we will give taxable supply. But penal interest, it is exempted supply. Okay, then a penal interest on delay in repayment of value of goods and services, taxable supply. Okay, so you need to compare this and this. Okay, here the interest on loan, your interest charge for supply of goods. Here penal interest on repayment of loan, here penal interest on delay payment of goods and services. Okay, so on loan amount, everything is exempted and not taxable. But you are for any supply of goods and services, you are paying any interest or penal interest, it will be taxable. Okay, this is important. Next, conclusion. Any transaction involving supply of goods and services or both without consideration is not a supply unless it is deemed to be supply under GST law, which is Schedule 1, will be coming below. Okay. You will treat it as supply even if made under consideration. So, okay. So there are 3 portions. We have already studied 7 subsection 1, 7 subsection 2. Now we'll go 7 subsection 1, subsection B. Import of services. Okay. Import of services for a consideration whether or not in the course or furtherance of business. It is applicable when only for services. Okay, import of services. The definition only says okay, it should be import of service. The supplier located outside India, recipient service located in India. The place of supply is in India. If these three conditions are there, sorry. Okay, so if these three conditions are there, then it is import of services and it should be provided for consideration. It should be in the course or furtherance of business or not. That's not an important point. Okay. So for import of services, this condition should be there. It should be only for services. Import of service means located supplier located outside India, recipient is located in India, place of supply will be here, place of supply sorry, will be in India, and services will be provided for consideration, whether it is related to business or not related to business. Okay. Next, some of the important points we need to consider for this import of services. Okay. As per the provisions contained in Section 21 of the IGST, all import of services made on or after the appointment day of SZ will be liable to IGST. So all import will be liable to IGST regardless of whether the transaction for such import of services had been initiated before the appointed day means when GST enactment started applicable. That is 1st July 2017. Even if it was initiated before 1st July 2017, GST will be levied on all the import of services after 1st July 2017. Okay. If the tax on such import of services had been paid in full under the existing law, means Finance Act 1994 that is administered, then no tax shall be liable. No tax shall be payable. Okay. If it is earlierly paid under service tax, then now it will be not paid. In case tax on such import service had been paid in part, if it is paid in part under existing law, then the balance amount of the tax shall be payable under IGST Act. Means you need to pay IGST. Okay. Let's take an example for a better understanding. Suppose the supply of service for 1 crore was initiated prior to the introduction of GST. A payment of 20 lakhs has been already been made to the supplier and service tax has also been paid on the same. Then IGST shall be levied or to be paid on the balance amount of 18 lakhs. Third case, okay. Rest all you can go through it. Examples. We'll go to the next section, that is 7.1 subsection C. Okay. 7 subsection 1C, that is schedule 1. Okay. So we have discussed above the supplies or activities for goods and services for consideration. And if there is no consideration, no GST, but there are some exceptions. Along with that, we have also considered import of services for consideration, whether or not in the course of business or not. Now we'll study the services or activity for which there is no consideration. One exception is there. That exception we'll study. That is schedule 1. Means it is deemed supply. Okay. So schedule 1. Activities to be treated as supply even if it is made without consideration. Even if it is made without consideration, it is also known as deemed supply. Okay. Deemed supply. So permanent transfer or disposal of business assets where input tax credit has been availed on such assets. Suppose you are transferring any asset or fixed asset or any goods or anything, or you are disposing some of the business assets, then there are two cases. One, on purchase of those assets, you have availed ITC or you have not availed ITC. In the first case, if you have taken input tax credit on the purchase of the asset, then when you sell or you dispose or permanent transfer, that will be considered supply. If you have not availed ITC, then it will not be considered as a supply on sale. So this point. where input tax credit has been availed, then permanent transfer or disposal of business assets will be considered as deemed supply. Next point. Supply of goods or services or both between related persons or between distinct persons as specified in section 25 when made in the course or furtherance of business. Means definition of related person and distinct person will later on we'll go through it. But what it says, if there is any transaction or supply of goods has been taken between these related persons or distinct person, and it is related to business, then also it will be considered as deemed supply, because any activity or transaction between related person might be there are no consideration is there. Okay, next point. Provided here is a condition is there. Gifts not exceeding 50,000 in the value financial year by an employer to an employee shall not be treated as supply of goods. Suppose an employer gives any gift to employee, so that value is 50,000. If it does not exceed 50,000, then it will be not considered as 50,000. If it exceeds 50,000, then it will be considered as deemed supply, and GST will be paid on the entire amount. Means, for example, an employer gave a gift hamper of rupees 70,000. Okay, let's take an example of 70,000. Suppose 70,000 of gift towards employee, then GST will be payable on entire 70,000 and not on 20,000. That is 70 minus 50. Okay, entire amount we need to pay. Next, supply of goods. Supply of goods by principal to his agent, where the agent undertakes to supply on such goods on behalf of principal by an agent to his principal, where the agent undertakes to receive such goods on behalf of principal. What do you mean by here? See, hello, principal
Yes.
to agent, and here agent to principal. So here on principal to send his agent, it acts as the edge where the agent further supplies or to receive, okay, on such goods on behalf of the principal. Here the agent act as a supplier, here agent act as a receiver. Okay, in both the cases, if the agent issues bill on his name, okay, then it will be considered as deemed supply. If the agent gives the invoice on the name of the principal only, then it will be not considered supply. Then next point. Import of services by a person from a related person or from another establishments outside India in the course or furtherance of business. See, import of services from related person or from any other establishment outside India. Okay, so related person or from outside establishment India in the course of business, then also it will be considered deemed supply, because related person it is linked, and establishment outside India means it is also linked. So it might be the case that there might not be any consideration. So it also considered as a deemed supply. I've just given in one line explanation, but here below explanation is there. Okay, we'll go through it right now. Don't worry. Then our first case is permanent transfer or disposal of business assets. All kind of disposal or transfer of business assets made by an entity on permanent basis, even without consideration, will be treated as supply, provided input tax has been availed on such assets. The same thing I've already explained. No, input tax availed, then this kind of disposal or transfer, it will be considered supply. Example, you can go through it. I will go through one example. MSZ Limited upgrades the computer system. The existing computers and laptops which do not support the upgraded version donated to a trust, and this amounts to the permanent transfer of business assets. The same will be treated as supply of goods and liable to GST in the hands of Z Limited, provided if company avail input tax credit on such computers and laptops when purchased. Okay.
Okay.
The same example, a similar example I gave you. Next. Okay, before to this, see one example, last example. MST Limited is in the business of hotel. Okay, hotel. He purchased AC for business purpose, and after 2 years, he transferred the AC to director without consideration. Will the transaction be supply? Any guess? Note, AC machine ITC is already available. So see here the AC has been used for the business purpose. It is used for 2 years. Then it is transfer. Means it's similar to this
Yeah.
permanent transfer. And ITC is also available. So what do you think? Whether
Yes.
GST will be paid or not? Whether it is supply or not?
Yes, it's a supply.
Yeah, that's the point. So yes, it will be a deemed supply as per Schedule 1. So what's the difference between section subsection 1 clause B and section subsection 1 clause C? The difference is it is import of service. It's import of service by a taxable person from a related person or from any other establishment outside India. Here it is just the import of services. 7.1b. 7.1b(c) is import of services from a related person or other establishment, and there is no consideration. Okay, see, here there is no consideration, but here consideration is there. This is the difference. You need to distinguish between these two. Okay, next. Supply between related person and distinct person. As per section 15, okay, section 15 of IGST Act defines related person. Who are the persons? We call them related person. Okay. Such persons are officers or directors of one another's business. Okay. So officer or director of another business, or they are legally recognized partners in the business, or they have employee-employee relationship, or else they directly or indirectly owns or controls or holds 25% or more of the outstanding voting stock or shares of the shareholding pattern is more than 25%. Or one of them directly or indirectly controls the other, or both of them are controlled by the third person, or together they are controlling the third person, or they are the members of the same family. Then they are called related persons. This also include legal persons. Persons who are associated in the business of one another in that one is the sole agent or the sole distributor or the sole consignee. However, described on the other shall be deemed to be related. So all these persons will consider them as related persons. Okay. Here one example is there. Example number 42. Any person directly or indirectly owns or controls or holds 25% or more of the outstanding voting stock or shares of both of them. MS Beta Company holds 30,000 shares in MSA Limited and 25,000 shares in B Limited. Share capital of MSA Limited is 1 lakh equity shares of rupees 10 each, as 80,000 equity shares of 10 each in Mr. B. Since MS Beta Limited holds more than 25% share of the company in the A Limited, more than 25%. It is already mentioned 30,000 shares, 1 lakh to 30%, which is more than 25%. And in B also 80,000, 25%, how much? It's more, obviously it's less than 25,000. So they both will be called as related person. Next definition, employer-employee relationship. We have also exception to this in the next section, but now we need to understand what is employer. Supply includes and excludes services provided by the employee to the employer in the course of employment, not in the course. Suppose you are in the course of employment. Okay. Suppose you are in the course of employment. Then if you are on regular basis, then no GST. If you are on a contract basis, employed by the company, no GST. Employed by contractor, pay GST. Okay. So what we understood is you are in the employment, you are on a regular basis, you are employed by the company, then no GST. If you are on contract basis, means temporary, there is no Contract, it is a contract. Okay, so there is no employment agreement. Then you need to pay GST because of contractor. Same in the not in the course of employment, you need to pay GST. This chart will help you to understand the relationship. Examples are there. You can go through the examples. See, here are some. These are from the. This has been taken from the clarifications and notification related to the directors. Okay. So, before to this, we need to first understand. See, you might be heard about managing director, full-time director, executive director, non-executive director, independent director. Before going into these, first you need to understand whether for holding these positions, whether there is a contractual agreement or they have permanent agreement, means permanent employment. Okay. If they have permanent employment, then it will come on regular basis and in the course of employment, so there will be no supply, no GST. But if there is no contract or no employment agreement, that means they are on contractual period or they are independent of their role, then that will be supply and GST will be paid. Now comes to this table. See, contractual relationship. If there is contractual relationship between master and servant, managing director no, because he is the owner. So GST is liable to pay for how much remuneration it takes from the company, and it will be paid under RCM, means reverse charge mechanism. Full-time director, there is no contractual relationship, so no GST, and there is no GST will payable. Executive director, yes, contractual relationship is there, so no GST. A non-executive director, no contractual relationship, means it is they have employment contract. Sorry, I said wrong. Non-executive director, there is a contractual relationship, so GST is liable to pay, but under RCM. Similarly, independent directors, they have contractual period, means for short period. Okay, so GST will be paid under RCM. The same thing is given the chart format. Okay, director remuneration, remuneration paid to the directors. Okay, directors paid to the remuneration. So, other than the independent director and independent director, it is taxable in the hands of the company on reverse charge basis. Okay, we have already say reverse charge. Okay, here see no independent director, there is no contractual relationship, GST will be liable and under RCM. Okay, so 149(6) of the company's act is independent director is not employee. Okay, because independent director is not an employee of the company, so there is no employer relationship. That means there is some contract for which independent director will be held is in the company. So GST, it will be supply and GST will be payable on reverse charges. Other than independent director, remuneration paid to the director is subject to TDS. Okay, under section 192. 192 TDS 192 is for salary. So if salary is paid and TDS is being deducted on under section 192, that means employer-employee relationship is there. So if there is an employer-employee relationship, then it will not be supply and no GST. But if remuneration paid to director is subject to under TDS under section 194J, J means professional services. That means it is a contract only. Then it is taxable and it will be paid on reverse charge. If you remember this table, it will help you to do this table. Okay. Here are some of the examples like fringe benefits and how on fringe benefits RCM is paid and what do you mean by distinct person. Okay. Now we'll come to distinct person. This will be our last topic for today's session. Okay. What do you mean by distinct person? I have already read the definition of related person. Okay. Don't misunderstand between related person and distinct person because both are different. See, what do you mean by distinct person? Every place of business of a person where separate registration is obtained for outward supply will be considered as a distinct person. What do you mean by saying every place of business where separate registration is obtained for supply, it will be considered distinct person. So there are two sections, 25 subsection 4, 25 subsection 5. So 25 subsection 4 says a person who has obtained or is required to obtain, okay, obtain or required to obtain more than one registration, whether in one state, union territory, or more than one state or union territory, and in respect of such registration shall be treated as distinct person. And 25 section 5 says where a person who has obtained or is required to obtain registration in a state or union territory in respect of any establishment has an establishment in another state, then such establishment shall be treated as the establishment of distinct person. So basically, what's the difference between these? Okay, I will give an example. Then it will help you to understand. Okay, I will write here. Okay, see, first 25.4 I'm saying. Okay, 25.4. Suppose this is a state. Okay, this is a state, and sorry, this is the state. So there are three states. Here is the factory, here is the warehouse or other unit, here is the other unit or registered office. Okay, so all are considered to be deemed distinct persons. Okay, so to consider them deemed distinct persons, if they have taken registration in these states, they have taken registration in these states, but they have not taken registration. Sorry, they have taken in this registration. When you transfer from here to here, or from here to here, or from here to here, okay, then for this and this and this, they will be considered as deemed distinct person, and they all have registered. So see, a person who has obtained or is required to obtain more than one registration, where in one state or union territory or more than union territory or state, more than one union territory state, then in respect of each registration, will be called as deemed distinct person. Okay. Now next 25.5. Okay. 25.5. 25.5 what says, see, here is the state or where factory is located, and here is another state located. Here head office is there where no business activity. Okay, no business activity, only corporate affairs, maintenance, compliance also, and here all business unit is there. Okay, it is registered under GST. Okay, it is differentiated. So how this transaction will take place for any services available, for any invoice, anything. So this establishment is not registered under GST. Okay, so this will be considered as establishment of distinct person. This is a distinct person as it is already registered under GST. So for this, how it is related to this unit head office, because there is no business, or there is no business and there is no GST registration. So this relationship is called establishment of distinct person. Okay, establishment of distinct person. So this is the difference between this. So all registered units are called distinct persons, but if you have a unit on which is unregistered or no business activity is taken, that relationship we can say establishment of distinct person. Okay, we'll take an example to better understand this. CMA RAM practicing chart cost accountant has registered head office in Chennai. He has also obtained registration in the state of Andhra Pradesh in respect of his branch office. CMA RAM will be treated as a distinct person in respect to registration in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. Transaction between the head office and the branch office will be considered as supply of service, even though there is no consideration. This is the case of, any guess? 25.4 or 25.5?
25.
25.4. CMA, a registered practicing cost accountant, has a registered head office in Chennai, branch office in state Andhra Pradesh, and both are registered. See, has registered head office in Chennai and also obtained registration in the state of Andhra Pradesh for his branch office. So both are registered persons, no? So it will be a case of 25-4. Okay. Next.
Okay.
Mr. C of Chennai makes taxable supply from Tamil Nadu exceeds 20 lakhs. Therefore, Mr. C will be required to obtain registration in Tamil Nadu. Such person may have establishment in the state of Telangana where no business or where no taxable supplies are made, but only the establishment in Telangana helps in handling the material like procuring and storing. And this establishment in Tamil Nadu and establishment in Telangana will be considered as distinct person even when establishment in Telangana is not registered. This will be 25. So this
Okay.
example
Got
will
it.
help you. This example will help you to understand the difference between 25-4 and
And 25.
25-5.
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
So
Thank you.
this one also I have already said. Okay. Gift not exceeding 50,000 in value of financial year. Services
Yes.
by an
Yes.
employee to an employee in the course of relationship with the employee shall not be treated as supply of services. And gift not exceeding 50,000 in the value of financial year by an employer or employee shall not constitute supply of goods. If it exceeds 50,000, you need to pay on entire amount. See here, example 75 is 1,000 is there. Since an employee and employer considered related person, this is treated as supply or it will be liable to GST because it is more than 50,000. Okay. Let's wrap up our today's class. We'll continue next from the next topic, supply to agents or by agents. Okay, if you need this note or PDF,
Yes.
just send me in comment. I will update the link in Google Drive. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bye. Let's finish our class today.
Thank you.